And this is Ken Kraetzer for CBSI and CBSI Talking Business, and another episode of our webinar interview series talking to leaders in the field of banking, insurance, customer service, business education, and marketing creativity. And all to highlight our team at CBSI, we provide insurance-based benefits to the credit card and payments industry. And we're really glad to have a chance to talk again with Brian Morrissey, who is the founder of The Rebooting, and has got a newsletter coming out twice a week, has had a long career with some major publishers, Digiday, Adweek, and even DM News, which I used to read religiously, and
Oh,
graduate of Columbia Journalism School, and we both went to Providence College in Rhode Island. So, Brian, good to see you. How you doing today?
good. Good to see you, Ken. Thanks for having me on.
Our pleasure. And Brian, you got a chance to go to a major international conference in Cannes in France, the
Mm.
Festival of Creativity, and what a remarkable event! Certainly the big stage for advertising organization. What was it like?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough assignment, Ken. I had to go to the south of France for a week and go to parties on yachts and at fancy hotels. Some really grueling stuff, but I survived. And no, it was enjoyable. Every year Cannes becomes the locus of what is now more than the advertising industry. This is an event that began in the 1960s as a regional celebration. The film, the cinema owners in France got together and were like, oh, these, we've got the film awards, but we want to award the advertising too. So they started this event. And so it isn't the film festival. The film festival comes first. Then advertising comes next, and then pornography comes third. So make of that what you want. I
Okay.
don't know. I don't know what that says.
Well, I actually got to Cannes one time about 30 years ago. I took a trip to France and went to the south on the train from Paris
Yeah.
and stayed in Nice. I happened to be at the film festival week and walked that boardwalk filled with actors and directors and producers from around the world. It was quite a high energy event. Now, tell us what was it like just to walk around in Cannes, and what kind of companies and people did you run into?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things though is as Can has evolved, when I first went there, I think in 2007, and it was at the end of an era, right, where it was always about the advertising creativity, the ads at the end of the day. It was a trade show, yes, but it was mostly about awarding the best of advertising creativity from around the world, right? And it was supposed to be inspiration, and it was mostly revolved around ad agency creatives, right? And the ad agencies themselves were very powerful figures then. Nowadays, it's a completely different event. The actual awards itself are really a small part of the overall event because it's become a meeting of the entire brand media technology ecosystem. And I think it speaks a lot to where media is going these days. Whereas when I first went, it was all about the big ad agencies had big parties on the beach and stuff like this. Nowadays, Amazon has taken over a giant space. Apple was there. Google has had a giant beach space for a decade. Spotify is there. Yahoo. In the marina are all of these yachts, small yachts, it must be said, but they're still yachts. Yachts where advertising technology companies, they rent them for the week and they have meetings and events on those yachts throughout the week. So it is, to me, it speaks to where the industry overall is going, and that is shifting. The power dynamics have shifted irrevocably to technology platforms, and not just the giant technology platforms that we think of with Google and Apple and Facebook, Meta, Snap is there and stuff. Amazon, but also now retailers. There's this thing called retail media,
Yeah.
and that is Amazon too, but it's also grocery store chains, Albertsons and Kroger is there. Uber is a big seller of advertising. Basically, anyone who gets any form of customer attention nowadays is in the advertising business.
Well, we see that media now is so decentralized, and mobile has made it easy to produce high quality video. Entire movies have been made off of iPhones, or I do dozens of videos every month off a mobile phone,
Yeah.
and so everybody's in the media business. But
Yeah, and so there are a lot of creators, for instance, who were there this year for the first time. So it's not, and I think it speaks to a lot of the challenges that media companies face in that their competitive set nowadays is not quote unquote just media companies. It's everyone. It's technology companies. It's individuals with a phone and with giant TikTok followings. And so that's really difficult because you're in competition with almost the entire world, it seems like at some points, versus just people whose companies look like yours.
I noticed there were quite a few American big name brands received awards: Coca-Cola, Apple, Heineken, McDonald's, Levi's, even Burger King, Coca-Cola, CNN, and New York Times. Some notable companies entered the competition and were recognized.
Yeah. I mean, the awards still matter, right? And I think the reason that they matter is because the people who are making creative advertising and stuff, you don't know their names, right? And obviously advertising is a commercial art form at its best, right? And it's in the service of commerce at the end of the day. And I think can provide like a source of inspiration as to the best work. The best work is typically not the most effective work. It's not the work that does the best for business results, right? Otherwise they would have like Google text ad of the year, and they don't have that, right? But I think it serves a purpose, and large companies use it. They, makes their teams feel good, and it helps motivation and morale. And it can serve as an example that advertising, we all like to complain about advertising, but some forms of advertising are absolutely breathtakingly creative. Now they are the minority, let's be real here. But it can serve that. I think one of the things that is I noticed that changed a little bit this year is that for the last few years, it's all been about purpose, right? And it's purpose. And sometimes listening to these marketers, you would think they were in the orphanage business, not the selling sugar water business. I mean, they're just talking as if they were just there to do better for the world and stuff. And meanwhile, back home, the CFO is like, look, your job is to sell more stuff. Let's be real. But in Cannes, you get to pretend that you're actually just about altruism and not about selling more stuff. I think we saw a little bit of a pullback this year in that the juries were instructed to put more emphasis on the results of the advertising and a little less on the virtue signaling aspects of quote unquote purpose. And I think that is part of the economy, right? At the end of the day, when we see this, a lot of companies talk big games about social issues and progressive causes and DE and I and various other things when times were good. When the economy goes into a tough spot, and for a lot of the advertising supported media world, the economy has been in de facto recession for this year. You have to get back to actually selling stuff. And that is, there's always a disconnect at Cannes between what people talk about and what they really do. It just becomes more glaring when the economy is not as buoyant as it was post-pandemic.
Absolutely. Now, I saw a number, as we mentioned, consumer packaged good companies, the big names, there. Were there any financial service companies, banking, credit card companies that stood out in what they presented?
I mean, I don't have any like specific examples of the work that they entered, but financial services and insurance are a major spending category, obviously, and they're always like well represented at Cannes, whether that's as entering the awards, right? Like for their work, but also increasingly, these companies themselves are sellers of marketing services and advertising. And that's because, like, again, the weight of the media world has gone away from creativity and it has gone towards data. And there's always this disconnect where for a week in Cannes, everyone pretends the world is as it was, driven by creativity and all this other stuff, when in reality, the day-to-day in the media industry is driven by data. It's about, can you finally target an ad and put it in front of the right person at the right time? And can you track the results of that ad and prove that it resulted in an uptick in sales?
Well,
Whether
certainly,
you use
yeah.
whether you use creativity in the service of that or not, honestly, does not matter on a spreadsheet. It just doesn't show up. But for a week, everyone plays pretend that like it's all about creativity.
Yeah, what kind of data are the advertisers looking for? Obviously, you're hinting at programmatic and trying to get your message on the right mobile phones. When
Yeah.
somebody's looking up Amazon or looking up YouTube, what kind of data are the advertisers looking for?
I mean, there's a few different types of data that are most important, right? I mean, one is intent data, right? So the most effective forms of modern digital advertising are about intent. If you think about Google, you know, Google's an amazing company, but they're also like, it's a little bit easier when people are typing into a search box what they're interested in. I mean, that's like, most media doesn't have that, right? And that's what's known as intent. If you're typing into a search box like, redecoration ideas, I mean, you don't need to be like, a genius to figure out that this person is probably redecorating their home. And you can put a lot of commercial messages in front of them. Then there's also like demographic data. Who we are tells us a lot about the types of purchases that we're going to make. And so a lot of these technology companies simply have way more data than any publisher could possibly have, or any advertiser could have about their own like customers. The reason that retail media is becoming such a big growth area is because retailers have a tremendous amount of data about what people buy. If I know that you buy yogurt every week, I can put yogurt ads in front of you. Maybe you'll try a new yogurt, but I can also extrapolate from that about all kinds of different things that you might be interested in purchasing while you're on Instacart or on your Kroger's app doing your shopping. So, again, this is all a data game at the end of the day, and those that have the better data win.
Absolutely. And were there any advertising agencies, digital agencies that stood out with their presentations?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's funny because like when I first started going to Cannes, there was always this divide between the traditional advertising agencies that mostly did TV ads and radio and print, and then the digital agencies that did, websites and banner ads and stuff like that. Nowadays, ad agencies are ad agencies. They work. Most of them work. They might have a specialty in one or the other, but they work across all forms of media. And because the reality is, the way we make decisions is not siloed by whether we're on a phone or whether we're walking down the street or whether we're watching TV. And the idea that there's digital media and analog media is sort of doesn't apply anymore. Every TV just about is connected to the internet. Does that make that like digital media? You know,
Except for
being
mine. I'm still working on that.
What's that?
I'm still working on mine.
Okay. Well, yeah, but most are connected to the internet. And if you look at like, what used to be radio ads, now they're podcast ads. Does that make them digital ads? The same principles and applying. And so I think as far as like making messages that drive business results, the digital agencies are competing with traditional agencies just as much. And I think where most marketers, where they want to see their money going, are to programs that use a bunch of different touch points rather than just one.
Yeah, when Bruce Beagle spoke to the Marketing Club of New York in January, Bruce from the Winterberry Group, he charts the spend on each of the major channels, and he said how many in recent years, how many more channels he's had to add to the presentation, given by mobile and streaming TV and video, and that being something that every advertiser has to look at now. One of the big topics I said in the write-ups was AI was in every discussion, as it seems to be in every business conference go to this year, and there were debates about it. What were some of the thoughts you heard about AI that made sense?
I think, like, again, this is one of those areas where there's sort of two parallel conversations going on. On the one hand, you hear people talking about the efficiency of AI, and that usually means cheaper, right? And like, so that, being able to, creativity is amazing, but like in the background is the fact that a lot of creative work is versioning, and it is going to get more quote unquote efficient, which I think that's what a lot of industries are facing. They're facing the possibility of being compressed, of needing fewer people to do the work. So if that's your job, that sort of concerns you. This is obviously, it's coming for all forms of quote unquote creativity. It's currently, ChatGPT is very good at text. It will be just as good at video, audio, and all kinds of different media formats. And that's one. And I think, the other conversation is about how to use these AI tools in the service of creativity. And, I think that's always going to be a push and pull about whether we're using these tools and these machines in service of humanity, or whether humanity is being used in service of these tools and machines.
Absolutely. Now, when I've gone to different types of conferences and you go to the trade shows, there are certain companies stand out because they have big booths, and they're investing a lot of money in being visible and meeting with their clients, meeting with prospects. What were some of the big companies there that wanted to be very noticeable at the event?
Well, I think at Cannes, the biggest fixed locations are the beach locations, which, these companies like Google and Spotify, they set up these massive Pinterest, they set up these massive beach apparatuses where they have meetings and they have concerts and they have dinners. And, those are typically done by the largest tech companies, but not exclusively. Stagwell, for instance, is a advertising holding company. They had a beach that they set up. Cannes Lions itself has a beach. And then, a lot of companies, as I said, particularly in advertising technology and data, are on yachts. And then there's another group of companies that rent villas. And, those can, because mostly, Cannes is, I would say the majority of people don't even buy a ticket to go there. To go to the actual festival itself. It's mostly about meetings at the end of the day. It's about client meetings. It's a sales event at the end of the day. Like, I joke, like, it bills itself as like a festival of creativity, but it's really a carnival of capitalism. And the creativity is in the background. It's like, it's a scene setter. It's an excuse to go and have sales meetings at the end of the day. You're just having sales meetings on a yacht or at Hotel du Cap in Eden Rock. I mean, that's where, people compete they try to top each other to bring people, particularly marketers, to these fancy locations, whether it's Monaco or Antibes We did a dinner actually in Grasse, the perfume capital of the world. It smelled wonderful.
Well, San Tropez is not too far from there, so
No,
another.
San Tropez is very close. There was like one organization, I will not name them. They decided to bring a group of CMOs to Monaco for a dinner, and they decided to bring them through by a speedboat, but the wind was really strong this year, and so it took over 3 hours for these markers to get there, and they were getting sick on each other by the end of the boat trip.
Oh gosh, yeah, it reminds me of going to some conferences actually from the Direct Marketing Association years ago, where there would be a little bit of that trying to compete against one provider versus another for who had the most
Oh yeah, I went to
interesting,
a DMA
outstanding event.
convention in New Orleans one time.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
ended up at like a postal service party.
yeah. No, it was great. Some great memories, and it's good to hear that international travel and conventions and the entertaining that goes on is all back. And
Oh, it's very back. It's very back. I mean, I went to Cannes last year, it was a little bit different. But this year was just like it was before the pandemic. And I just think I thought things would totally change with the pandemic, but I think humans are just hardwired to snap back to like being the same social creatures that they've always been.
absolutely. Any final observation of being in Cannes for the Festival of Creativity in June?
No, not really. I mean, I think like it speaks to a lot of the complicated nature of the modern media ecosystem, because you have many different industries that are sometimes like rub up against each other, but in the past operated totally separately, that now are rubbing up against each other more than ever. And that creates, tremendous opportunities, but also a ton of challenges.
Well, Brian Morrissey, great to see you here today, the founder of the Rebooting, 9-year editor at Digiday. Tell us about your publication, the Rebooting.
Yeah, I mean, I left Digiday. I was the president, editor in chief there for, you said, almost 10 years. And then I left in October 2020, started the Rebooting. It is a newsletter and podcast. I think it's a very modern form of media. And we also do in-person events. We did a 3 days of programming at a cafe in Cannes, with a partner, and then we did a dinner there too. And so I write about sustainable media businesses, and have a podcast, two podcasts, on the same topics. One's called the Rebooting Show, where I talk to operators of these businesses, and the other is People versus Algorithms, which is more of a discussion show that I do with Troy Young, who used to run Hearst magazines, and Alex Schleifer, who is the head of design at Airbnb. And we talk about patterns in media, culture, and technology, and really trying to connect the dots about where things are going with all of these changes that are going on. So hopefully people will check it out.
Very good. Brian Morrissey, so good to have you join us today and tell us about the experience of going to Cannes for the Festival of Creativity. Many American major brands received awards at that event, and it certainly was a big stage to be at, and a nice place to spend a couple of days.
Yeah, it wasn't bad, Ken. I got to be honest with you. It was fine.
Well, I've been there once, so I kind of know what it's like. I was there on a bright, sunny, actually, Cannes Film Festival. I think it was back in the late 1980s, and what an exciting place that was to be. But Brian, thanks for joining us. Look forward to talking to you again. This is Ken Kraetzer for CBSI and CBSI Talking Business. We provide benefits in the credit card and payments industry. I always like to highlight our team here in Harrison, New York. I'm back in the home headquarters today, and great to be here. Thank you, Brian. This is Ken Kraetzer. Thanks for watching, everybody.